Hi guys, welcome back to JACKO'S Super Coach and AFL Fantasy. Today I will be doing my AFL Fantasy team reveal, so let's get into it. In defence, be fairly similar to my Super Coach defence. It is Jake Lloyd, great player, really good with the new rule I reckon. Get the overlapping handball, long kicks down the line. My second player for the defence is Rory Laird. Same as my Super Coach, he has so much midfield potential. He's going to rack up this season because he's playing extra midfield time. Looks really good in pre-season. Played pretty well in the AAMI-Community series game as well. Third defender is Jaden Short, also on my Super Coach team, and whopping 171 fantasy points on the weekend. That's absolutely brilliant. I think he has shown a great AFL fantasy potential, and I'm putting in my team for round 1. Next is James Harms. Is meant to be back into his usual position of midfield, where he plays the best. So I hope he can rack up the points in the midfield and do really well, and maybe get the DPP as well. Next person is Hayden Young. Had a really good preseason game, 72 points, and I think he'll be a really key defender for Freo, considering he's the one that's taking out the kickouts and everything. Now the last defender is Will Gould. Looks really good this preseason. Didn't play last season, so look, I reckon I'll give him games this season, so looks really good. For a bench, we'll have Thomas Highmore. He's going to be playing, so lock him on your bench because he'll get around 40-50 points and his price will go up. And next person is Jack Kozitsky. Kicked 6 goals in the weekend of a fantasy score of 105, so his price will go up heaps if he plays. So lock him in because he'll be playing forward as well. In our midfield, we've got a pretty mid-price midfield. We've got Tim Taranto in there. He looked really good in the preseason game. Looked really back to normal, not like last year, but 2019 he looked really good, and I think he's continuing the same form that he had then. Next person is Luke Shuey. He didn't have a good season last season, but I think he'll rack up, get over the 100 points per game if he continues what he did in the preseason. The overlapping handball and the kick down the line. He looked, if you look at his past scores in 2018, as an absolute beast. He scored hundreds, and his lowest score was like 37. So lock him in because he is really good. And now I think everyone has this player, but Matthew Rao. He was an absolute beast last year, and too bad we didn't get him for the whole season. And even if he does not do well, lots of people have him, so it won't be too bad. Next person is Seb Ross. If you look at his midfield times that he played in the preseason game, he played, I think, 16 centre bounce tendencies at a 75% and 81% time on ground percentage. So I think he will be a lock for the Saints round 1, and I hope he can get above the 90s, 100s scores, considering his potential. And next person is Rory Sloane. He is underpriced for his potential. In 2017, when they were in the Premiership, and 2018, 2019, those 3 years he was up in the 700Ks, scoring over 100 as a premium in the midfield. Now he's down to 500, and I hope he can continue what he did in 2017 to 19. Our next person is our rookies for the midfield are Tom Power, Connor Downey, and Errol Goulden. They all looked brilliant in the preseason games, and they all scored above 60. So their prices will go up, and hopefully they can get up to 500s, 400s. And then you'll earn some extra cash. On our bench, we'll have the same as our super coach, Collier Dawkins. He looks like he'll play this season, so he'll get some cash going up. And James Jordan played a preseason game, got 50, I'm pretty sure, and he looked really good for the Melbourne Demons in their midfield. So get him on your bench because he will get you points and get you cash. Our next player is set and forget like super coach, Max Gorn, Brody Grundy. And our bench is Matthew Flynn, who will be the GWS Giants #1 ruckman. So his cash will go up heaps because he'll be playing for the first 6-7 rounds. Not much to say about these two. They're just best ruckman for AFL Fantasy in the league. Not much else to say. They're really good players. And our forward line. I had a bit of trouble figuring out this, but I finally came to agreement on Josh Dunkley and Tom Phillips as my premiums for my forward line, as they had absolute rip preseason games. Josh Dunkley, 133, looks to be playing lots more midfield time for the Dogs, which is good for if he has that forward status as well. Same as Tom Phillips. He had 141 on the weekend. That is a monstrous score for a preseason game. And he's playing on the wing as well, considering he's taken Isaac Smith's spot, which is really good, and he will look to be a really key player in the Hawthorns lineup. So next person is not Jack Higgins. I was looking at him the other day, but I don't think he'll be able to keep up the scoring potential that he had. Next player is actually 470 player. It's Jaden Stevenson. He looks to be playing lots of midfield time in the Roos camp, and I think he will rack up this season considering he's playing forward and mid, and he's a very good goal kicker. He played for Collingwood before, and he looked really good there, and he looked really good forward line player. Next player is Orazio Fantasia. He had 73 points before half time in the practice match, and then they took him off and he only played about 50% of the game. He could have got easy 140 points, and he looked like he was absolutely set. And then there's been a lot of debate on this person, but I think considering his midfield attendances and his time on ground percentage, Paddy Dow will absolutely rack up this season. He didn't play too well in the practice match, but I think he will play on Thursday, and I think he will get above the 70s, 80s, considering his points and his midfield attendances. And then our rookie is the same as our super coach, is Braden Campbell. 50 odd points in the preseason, but that's still pretty good for a rookie, and he looks really good and set for round 1 in the Sydney Swans camp. Bench is Harrison Jones, I think it was 50 odd fantasy points in the preseason game. He's a lock for round 1 for Essendon Bombers. Their development coach said that he was a definite pick for round 1. And then Miles Bergman, same as my super coach bench, but 86 fantasy points. You can't go past him at 170k in the preseason match. He just absolutely kicked goals, played midfield a bit, and he racked up. So lock him in on your bench for extra cash. And then our utility is going to be Lloyd Meek. He's meant to be Frito's #1 ruckman now, because Sean Darcy is getting old and he is getting injuries to his calf, and Lloyd Meek 70 fantasy points in the preseason against Nick Nat. That's pretty good. And then considering he's going up against some not so good ruckman, I think he'll rack up this season. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe.